what I love is to really empower our engineering team to own craft. So it's not just the designers saying, this should be, more animated, or, we should change the visual hierarchy of this particular screen to be better. Instead, the engineers are actually trained in the language of craft so that they can identify what is a well-crafted experience versus a less well-crafted experience, and they can go ahead and independently implement their ideas. And then they might work with the designer to refine it, but they have good ideas themselves, and we empower them. Because ultimately, the only way you can achieve a high level of craft is when your engineers build it. I lead a team of designers, content designers, product designers, design engineers, and some folks who specialize in animation and motion to craft the overarching experience of Slack. And I also contribute quite a bit to the product roadmap, helping shape the vision for where Slack heads and helping to define, how we enter into new markets, what does Slack mean in the age of AI. And then a good portion of my time is spent with customers as well, learning from them and helping them understand how Slack can work for them.
Could you tell us a problem you're solving today or working on?
So, one really interesting problem that's top of mind for me right now is how do we help Slack become the best product in the age of AI, and how is AI actually changing the way that people work fundamentally? And it's moving so fast, obviously, that every week there's a new release, a new model is built, there's new advancements in technology, there's new product applications of AI in different realms across sort of the space of enterprise applications and work as well as consumer. It's an interesting challenge because we have never seen a time in technology where innovation has happened so quickly. And it's just this Cambrian explosion of new ideas, new applications, and an evolution in the fundamental technologies that power AI. This is sort of new territory, I think, for everybody. You want to try to pick your strategy that is able to sort of encompass the potential outcomes of the trends that you see, and you try to think forward as best you can around the outcome of this collection of technologies and position yourself in that strategic thinking as best you can to take advantage of it. And when we see that the evolution of how people are collaborating with AI, it starts to become something that feels more like collaborating with another human versus an interface or just another technology.
Have you noticed any sort of shift today in how products are being built, sort of like in service of quality?
I mean, one that I've started seeing more of and that I'm very keenly aware of and I'm very excited about is this passion and drive for especially enterprise software companies and companies that support people doing work. There's a drive towards making them as high quality as possible so that people's working environments feel fantastic, right? And so when you work on a consumer product, that you have to create a great user experience because that's the key to getting people to use your product. That's not always the case with enterprise companies. You provide a set of value, some kind of database, et cetera, that people really need to run their business. And oftentimes what is sacrificed is a superlative user experience because you've already sold the product, they're locked in with the data, you don't necessarily need to innovate on it. They'll still renew, right? And I think what we're seeing is this new set of companies that are coming up that are really focused on a superlative customer experience. The way I like to think about this is, right now we're in this beautiful office. I'd rather work in this beautiful office than I would, say, in a low-ceilinged, popcorn ceiling office with no windows in a cubicle in a rundown chair, right? I can still do my work on my laptop there, but which environment would I like to work in? And the choice is obvious. So why don't we think about our software that way? Because we have the technologies today to make the work software that people are existing in beautiful and incredibly engaging. There's different factors that go into that experience that you can make an actual experience that feels premium and that feels great to use for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours a day. What I've seen is this shift in value around creating a great brand and a great experience for software for work that is very heartening. And we've got new technologies. Figma's all playing a role here, building technologies that help designers and developers work better together. But we also have expectations that I think are being elevated by new aspects of the operating system. I think the large AI companies are doing a good job of creating experiences that feel somewhat consumery, that a lot of people are using for work. So I think we're starting to see this shift in expectation around experiences for work that feel great to use, that feel better than even the best consumer experiences.
Do you think that there's a shift in how that experience is achieved as well? Like in how actually teams are going about elevating the experience of work or like creating a good experience?
I think so. I think what I've seen that's been really exciting is we have a series of founders who care so deeply about this and are actually influencing the industry around this. So, when you've got, say, like the Collison brothers talking about the importance of craft for Stripe, and it's a competitive advantage for them that sets the expectation. Obviously, Brian Chesky is very vocal about design. And having worked at Airbnb, I know obviously how much he cares about it. He's a designer at heart, right? And he's got this incredible company that he built around design, transforming hospitality. Kari at Linear is another person who, he's an incredible designer. He's an incredible product thinker, incredible leader. Linear, I think, is doing an incredible job talking about craft and why that's important. So you see this shift in, I think, mindset of leaders around the importance of superlatively crafted software and the impact of that on the customer experience and the understanding of the impact of superlatively crafted software on customer choice and preference. And you see people switching to software that is incredibly crafted because it's got similar functionality, but the experience of it feels so much better, and so people prefer to stay with it. That's that's what Slack did. Slack came out with a new experience that engineers and other people within technology really love to use, and they shifted their entire way of working from email over to Slack because it was more efficient. They were able to be more productive in it, but also felt simpler, and Slack put a lot of effort into its voice and tone to make it feel pleasant and fun to work in. You have that shift from a leadership perspective and leaders within companies knowing that it matters and talking with each other about why it matters. I mean, you see Toby at Shopify talk about this as well, right? So you see these leaders who are engaging in this conversation, but then you need to empower your teams to be able to accomplish it. And so that takes the leaders then communicating across every function, design, product, and engineering, to make sure that those functions also care about attaining a high level of craft. And there's different techniques to do this, but from my experience, you can have designers that have the greatest ideas, the best designers in the world, but unless your engineers can build it, it doesn't matter. And then the product managers need to make sure that they make time for it. So when they're thinking about the development schedules, how to keep the project on track, et cetera, I think there needs to be a shift from this idea of releasing a minimal viable product, which is just useful and usable, to something that's a minimal lovable product, which is both it's useful and usable, but it also is well crafted and delightful. So there needs to be a shift from a product owner's standpoint around what it means to deliver a high quality product and how to help steer the team towards that direction. The best companies building product, they don't spend a ton of time in an upfront definition phase, then going into this specific phase where you're designing the thing, and then going into a specific phase where you're building it. That's like the old school waterfall model. What I've seen is the best companies and the ones that are able to move the swiftest and get the best output are those who have their product managers, sometimes it's the entire team, make a series of bets. We think if we do this thing, it's the right thing for our customers, and our customers will see a lot of value from it. But they don't spend a lot of time laboring around perfectly crafting a definition for what this thing is, right? It can be a short document that's here's the bet we should take. And then, ideally, you've got an engineer who's able to start building that bet. And that engineer is working with then a product manager and a designer who are contributing ideas. And the designer is contributing designs that empower the engineer. But the engineer is so ambitious and capable of realizing the product experience that the designer is almost playing catch up, right? Because the engineer is building out that bet so fast that the best you can do is actually give them guidance and then you're essentially sculpting or molding the actual feature. And it's not we have a clear definition of what we need to do at the beginning and exactly what this thing is that we're building. It's a process of sculpting and molding it based on feedback and based on your collective perspective on the thing that you're building. And then over time, you're refining it, much like a sculptor is refining their sculpture. And you get to a point with all of the feedback and all of the input that you've refined it to the point where this is actually the right thing. And then you're done. Or you're not necessarily done, you're ready to make it generally available. And once it gets out there and more people are able to see your sculpture, you get more feedback on it, and then we should take it now this direction. Like, this feature's not just set, it's now we're going to evolve it in this direction. But it's not a step-by-step process. It's more of a process of molding and sculpting the feature in a way that allows every function to participate in their own unique way. You're able to move swiftly because you're prototyping the path, and you're taking feedback from your customers, from yourself, from others. You're factoring feedback in from changes in technology and bringing those in because it's happening so quickly. And that whole sort of like movement gets you to something that you feel confident enough to release, and then you continue forward.
Could you speak a little bit to the balance of specialists and generalists in this process, and kind of like what you look for in the people who can actually like achieve this level of quality and collaboration?
Yeah. So when you have a cross-functional team that's working together to sculpt the product forward, you do want generalists, right? You have product managers who understand design well and who understand the technology. You have engineers who ideally are craftspeople themselves, but they also have an understanding of the customer and what the customer might value, and also about like what it means to actually build something that is essential. And then you've got designers who understand your customers, what they value, the capabilities of the code. We have some designers in the team who themselves can actually code, build the front-end experience, and they oftentimes will play a partner to the engineers who are building the back end while also doing design. So people spike in certain areas. That kind of defines what their role is. But we try to create teams of people and hire people and train people so that they are more generalists, so they're able to all work together as a team to accomplish this goal of sculpting the feature forward. And if you look at our product principles, those product principles are for designers, engineers, and product managers. In fact, everybody who touches product, even though they sound a lot like design principles, right? But we want everybody to care about thinking about the utility curve. Our engineers should be able to say, where are we at in this utility curve? Is this the right bet to make, right? And do we have that bold vision that we need? And are we thinking about our customers, and are we really being the best host that we can be? Or are we keeping it as simple as possible? Do people have to think about this experience? Or are we actually prototyping the right way? Every function should be able to think about those qualities of how you build product. So I am a firm believer in the value of generalists who spike in certain areas. I also think it is important that for each function, they do their thing exceedingly well. Because one of the downsides of having generalists is that, I wouldn't necessarily call this a downside, but it's a potential challenge in this sort of generalist team, or a team of generalists, is that if the person who's responsible for a particular function is not actually excelling at their specific skill set in that function, another function might need to pick up the slack, which means that it takes more time and energy from them to focus on their specific function that they're great at. So if you have a product manager who might not be driving the team in the best way, but you have a designer who's really great at driving the team, who's also really great at design, and they end up spending time driving the team, then they're spending less time actually doing great design. When you have that generalist system, you still need each function to excel at what they are uniquely hired to do.
That awareness feels like a differentiator between people who understand like excellent software and like just okay. Any other thoughts on what really distinguishes like quality from not quality, if it's that binary? I don't know if it's that binary.
So the framework that I use is basically you have three factors that go into great software. First is utility, like is this thing of value? Then you have usability. Is this the most usable experience I could possibly have? And then the last one is craft. And let's just think about the superlatives. With utility, is it the most valuable thing I can possibly have? Is it the most usable thing I can possibly have? Is it the best crafted thing that I can possibly experience? And so the utility and usability are really about, is this meeting a real need? The most important need possible? Does it have the best market fit for a particular customer base? And then the usability is, if you think about this world of AI, like, do I have to learn the software or not? Can I just talk to it and it gives me the right result? It does what I want it to do. I don't have to learn anything. I don't have to click anywhere. It just does it. Then craft is a whole separate topic unto itself. Does it have beautiful two-dimensional design or three-dimensional design if we're working on spatial experiences? Is it animated? And the reason why motion animation is so important is because in the real world, things don't just snap from point A to point B. Like there's no quantum jumps in the real world, or at least that we can see. Instead, we see fluid transitions. And so software should mimic the best of the real world experience. So like an example is a soft closed cabinet. You can like hit the soft closed cabinet closed and it goes quickly and then at the end, softly closes, then has a nice little click and it feels fantastic. So that's the animation. Then you've got the idea of interactivity, right? So what does it feel like to actually click that button? Does it give me some kind of really interesting response? And the difference between a movie, which is very well crafted, and software is that software actually is interactive. Then you've got three-dimensional design and like industrial design. So like marrying the notion of ergonomics, or what does it feel like to use something, with the notion of materiality. So like what does it actually feel like? So an example is like on my Apple Watch, when I set the alarm on my Apple Watch and I use the jog dial, as it goes over every 5-minute increment, it gives me a little bit of a pop and it just feels cool. I just want to play with it, right? And then the last factor is voice and tone of the experience. So when you bring all those 5 things together, you have, and you really achieve like the apex level of experience for all 5 of those things, you have an extraordinarily crafted experience.